So I wanted to ask you, like, I know you have some videos out on it, but I just kind of wanted to ask, like, your journey of flexibility.
Sure.
So, like, I know it's been like a 5-year road for you, but like, what were like the exact like, kind of like, what was like your big routine from the moment like you hurt your back and realized, all right, I'm gonna get started in flexibility training, you know?
Mm-hmm. When I first hurt my back in like 2011, I already had a background in basic foam rolling and basic stretching, which at the time was even kind of like cutting edge, if you will. Like people were just starting to get into foam rolling, like basic foam rolling and stretching and things like that in the strength and conditioning community, in the powerlifting, Olympic lifting, track and field community. And so I kept doing basic foam rolling and stretching, but then I was like, I need more, I need to learn more. So I started doing a lot of yoga. I would go to yoga class like 6 days a week and learn the yoga perspective on things. I also found Kelly Starrett at the time, who I think is just a pioneer in the mobility world, and started doing a lot of smashing and stretching. And then kind of the third ingredient that really helped me in the beginning was I found this guy named Phil Pedichenko in Encinitas, who is this chiropractor with like 30, 35 years of experience, very spiritual guy. And he was really big into the self-massage, kind of like Kelly Starrett, but in a very targeted, pinpoint, almost like trigger point therapy style way of working on things. And he was an amazing hands-on body worker. And what I learned about him is that he does a significant amount of body work on himself. And I feel like this is like a critical thing that makes for a good healer, a good physical therapist, a good massage therapist, a good teacher, is that they do a lot of work on themselves. And so I learned from him more self-massage, trigger point, soft tissue work, in addition to what I was learning from Kelly Starrett's videos. And I watched every single Kelly Starrett video ever, probably 2 or 3 times. And so the combination of the yoga, the stuff I'd already knew, Kelly Starrett, Phil, targeted tissue work, and then I later on, like maybe a year or 2 after that, found Ido Portal, got into loaded and ballistic stretching. So it kind of all came together to help a naturally stiff person such as myself fix the pain I was originally having and also get fairly flexible for not being a naturally flexible person.
Very flexible, yeah. Now how, because like the FRC guys kind of like said foam rolling is useless and stuff, and it just has like a psychological effect on, you know, like pain, you know, and all that, and like, so I wanted to know like what's your thoughts on that? Because when I you know roll out or smash for myself, I get like, you know, it kind of helps the pinching pain, kind of like how you prescribed, but they're kind of like, they're saying it doesn't really do much. So what's up with that?
I can't speak for kind of where they're coming from. I agree that if you only ever stayed with foam rolling, it would do just a little bit. I mean, if you foam roll and then you retest your pain or your range of motion and it's improved, and if you can look at like a several month time frame from when you weren't foam rolling to 3 months later and you've been foam rolling a lot, you probably would notice some pain reduction and a little bit of mobility improvement. So I don't agree that it does nothing, but I also don't agree that you can only foam roll. I think, I know I have a video that I've already filmed about this that is not out yet, but basically my point is you can't stay with foam rolling, just like you can't stay with curling a 5-pound weight and expect to keep getting stronger. You will quickly adapt to that 5-pound weight. You will quickly adapt to foam rolling, and that's where you need to get into what I call targeted tissue work, which is more aggressive, more pinpoint, more trigger point style tissue work on like the deep attachments of your muscles. And I don't think anyone would say that that's not effective. If they say that's not effective, then they never tried it, because to me it's been one of the biggest things. It's like a magic pill for taking away my pain and the people that I work with. But you have to learn. You have to have the right tool. It can't be a foam roller. You can't get your adductor attachment points with a foam roller. It's just too blunt. So foam rolling is not completely worthless, but you quickly adapt and the gains stop coming from foam rolling. It's my opinion.
Yeah, I think they're kind of like talking bad about like tissue work and like all of itself. like they're just kind of saying like it just has an analgesic effect and it just feels good at the time, but then like those effects will kind of just go away. But I feel like if you do it before stretching, like all your stretching techniques, and it helps you get into deeper stretches, you know, then I think that's very valuable in itself, you know.
Yeah, as someone who has FAI, I can say 100%. If I only did stretching techniques, I wouldn't be out of my problem. If I only stretched, if I only did FRC style stretching, which is not new, they've just categorized it and named it very scientifically. Not. It's not new. It's gymnastics, stretching, and other stretching combined in a nice scientific package.
Yeah,
that aligns with the literature. It's good stuff, but it's not new. But I can't imagine anyone who starts using kettlebells and barbells and lacrosse balls and jack knobbers and these other tools and really learns how to use them well would say after a couple months that is completely a placebo effect. It's comical to me because if you just do Kelly Starrett's test before, do some mobility work, test after, especially as you get skilled, your range of motion improves and your pain is far less. So yeah, that's what I think about that.
Yeah, no, I agree. That's an experience, you know. I mean, I couldn't do a squat workout without, you know, doing any of that, you know.
Yeah, and I don't think you should become overly dependent on it where you're doing like hours of mobility work and then going to squat cold and forgetting about just getting really, really warm and heated before you work out. That in and of itself will make you more limber. So people can swing too far to one side or the other of the spectrum, but the truth is usually somewhere in the middle. So foam rolling is not completely worthless, but it's not a complete game changer. And I feel like, you know, when something gets popular and it becomes popular in the general public, like foam rolling has gotten popular in the general public, someone's got to bring the pendulum back to the middle. And so that's usually when people start showing up saying, oh, actually, it's not useful at all. You know, people said this about, you know, cardio, like long endurance cardio, just running. That was, you know, in the 80s and 90s really popular. Go out and run. And then people said, no, that's worthless. It's not even useful. You need to do interval style training, high intensity interval training. That's the only way to train. And the truth is, depending on your sport and the type of person you are and all these different factors, they both have their uses. Nothing is black or white.
So then after you got into the yoga, so how was it with Ido Portal? Like, I feel like he's such a mysterious guy, and I that's kind of like my training style. Like right now, like I'm totally into like the body weight stuff, and I just want to get I just want to be able to move well, you know?
Yeah.
So like, how long were you working with him? Did you actually go to like a corset course, or?
I didn't go to any workshops. I just did his online coaching program, and I was doing that for about 6 months. I was training that style, and it was great. It was fun. It was a different way of training. I hadn't ever really done much gymnastics. It was a introduction to kind of the loaded stretching and the ballistic stretching, and I also had some other places that I sought out how to do ballistic stretching and loaded stretching. I'm kind of just a geeky researcher. I'll just go and search the interwebs and find all these different teachers and techniques and just kind of try them all out for myself and see what I like.
Yeah.
But it was a great experience. It was you know, he's obviously an incredible mover, as are all of his co-teachers, and yeah, I got nothing but good things to say about his methodology and
definitely
philosophy.
Did you get a lot more flexible kind of in that 6 months doing all of his techniques, his loaded and ballistic? Or did you already have your splits?
I don't think I had my full splits at that point. I mean, it depends on what you define. Like I could do the pancake splits and get like my head to the ground, but I couldn't get like my belly button to the ground. So did I have my splits or not? I don't know. I did have my splits. Because I recorded a video that said like Ido Portal middle splits, because I had seen him do the middle splits on video and saw that he was, you know, had muscle and he was strong, and I'd never seen like kind of a buff guy doing the middle splits, and I was like, holy crap. And that's when I got into the loaded stretching, and I was still doing like Olympic weightlifting at the time and squatting and stuff like that, and that's when I got my middle split. So it kind of opened my eyes that you could actually be strong and still be flexible at the same time. But traditional kind of passive relax into the stretching might not work if you were trying to be both. So that's why I really like the loaded stretching for athletes.
So how did you program in the loaded stretching with your weightlifting?
I would often program it on the same day that I was training the same muscle groups. It's kind of like a bodybuilder split where bodybuilders will just like really hammer their chest and triceps on the same day. Any day that I was training, my legs, like my hamstrings and adductors in a very intense way, I often would do my splits flexibility training on that day, because splits flexibility, especially like loaded isometric splits, is kind of like maximal effort weightlifting. Yeah. So there's a million different ways to kind of change the split. That's why there's tons of bodybuilding splits and tons of powerlifting splits. There's no like one ultimate way for people, but I often would put it on the same day that I was doing intense weightlifting, because I would find if I did like really heavy squatting one day and then tried to do the splits the next day, I'd be so sore from the squatting that I couldn't do the splits effectively. So it's almost like just put in track and field, they call this high-low training. So you have like really intense days and then less intense days, really intense days, like that.
So would you do that heavy stretching, say, would you do middle split and front split all in one day?
No. Well, sometimes I would. Sometimes I would just do all of my splits on one day. Like pancake, middle split, front split, and just get all of my leg muscles really sore the next day. And I would do that maybe once or twice a week, depending on my recovery, and the rest of the days would be lighter. But I've also done where I do like ballistic stretching for my hamstrings and front splits on one day, because it's very hamstring soreness inducing. Yeah. And then do middle splits on another day. And even pancake splits are they make your hamstrings pretty sore if you go really deep. So I would do like front splits and pancake splits, very hamstring dominant on one day, and then middle splits and maybe something else, back bridge or something, on another day, because they're more groin adductor dominant. So I would kind of isolate the muscle groups so that I could recover. Yeah. So would you have like a general flexibility routine like on your off days from that? Or Yeah, I call them limbering days in my flexibility programs. I call them like deep stretching days and limbering days. So those would kind of vary. It was whatever. I might do some tissue work. I might do just kind of light, just gently touching my end ranges, but not doing nothing that was going to make me really sore, and just kind of keeping things loose and limber, but not doing more eccentric muscular damage that was going to cause more DOMs, more soreness the next day. So the big loaded days, that's where you get all your gains, and then the limbering days are just kind of for maintenance. Yeah, exactly. To make sure you don't kind of reflexively shrivel back up. Because if like you do like a heavy workout and then you just sit, you'll kind of feel really tight after all that. But if you do a heavy workout and then you just kind of get some blood flow and some light stretching, you'll feel a lot better. So same thing with splits training. So like throughout the day, you mean? Yeah, either throughout the day, just kind of light stretching, or as part of my workout for that day. Like I might do like upper body training and light lower body limbering on my kind of low day. Okay, cool. Yeah, I was just wondering about your deep squat, because like that's kind of the biggest thing I want to get down. What was the biggest thing that got you into the deep squat? Just getting all of your muscles. I mean, it sounds kind of stupid and simple, but getting all of your lower body muscles in your hips and in your ankles as flexible as you can. So actually training towards my split helped me get deeper squats, because if you can do the middle splits and the front splits, if you can do the front splits, you have very flexible hamstrings and very flexible hip flexors. If you can do the side splits, you have very flexible adductors. If you can do the pancake splits, you have very flexible kind of adductor hamstrings. And then you train your glute flexibility as well, and then your ankle dorsiflexion, your ankle mobility, and then that's a deep squat. It's all of it. I think there's a big people look on the internet and they're like, there's so many people that want to give you like a quick fix or a quick something like the secret to deep squats is ankle mobility, or it is adductor flexibility, or it is hip internal rotation. It's all of those plus some.
Yeah.
So it's just continuing to maximize your hip internal and external rotation, hip flexion, hip extension, ankle mobility, all of it, and continuing to refine your technique for deep squats, the pelvic positioning, how the chin affects the pelvic positioning, how you're bracing your core, the degree of knee out that you use, all of that.
Yeah, the biggest thing I learned in the FRC thing was they said that if your rotational capacity of your hip is not working, like if you have zero internal rotation, then you have no business doing any like hip flexor stretching or like hamstring. Like it's just gonna, like you're not gonna get the results you want if your joint isn't working properly.
Mm-hmm.
So would you say like that rotational part is a good place to focus first off?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's one of the areas that you see missing very commonly. Hip internal rotation, definitely for sure, is a huge missing piece for a lot of people. I'm hesitant to make too many extreme kind of like you shouldn't work on your hamstrings or hip flexors at all until you restore the rotation. That seems a little bit too absolutist.
Mm-hmm.
But you do have to have priorities and emphasize certain things. So you should find out where you're missing the most range of motion, what's most restricted, and probably concentrate more of your time on that, but don't totally neglect your hamstrings or hip flexors or like that. You should kind of work on everything concurrently, but you do have distinct priorities, and that kind of goes for anything.
I'll tell you my routine real quick.
Please.
It's I have like a rotational day, hip rotational day, internal, external, and then I'll do like the FRC lift-offs after that and just like kind of train that range, and then I'll finish it off with some sort of strength component, whether it's like a squat or something.
Mm-hmm.
The next day it'll be like maybe an upper body day with like, hip or shoulder flexion, extension. Next day will be like a hip flexion extension day, and that's where I'll get my front split training in. And then the next lower body day will be like a hip abduction day. So I'll do like all the exercises I told you that I just did, and then I'll do like the FRC lift-offs and stuff for that. And then, some other little lower body strength, maybe some rings work for the upper body. And that's kind of what I've been going with now for the past like month.
Cool. Yeah, sounds like a good routine. I mean, your routine will morph and change over time as you unlock certain flexibility or as your priorities change a little bit. But that sounds like a great start. It's a great routine.
Cool. And then I'm definitely gonna be purchasing one of your programs coming up soon. I'm thinking either the ballistic or the loaded, just so that I want to learn a lot more about it.
Yeah, it's a nice addition to kind of your basic TSR stuff, tissue work, stretching, and release. It's kind of like it's just a different angle on stretching and flexibility and building strength at end range and stuff like that.
Definitely.
So,
yeah.
You'll find it quite useful. No, I appreciate you sharing your story and kind of the progress you've made so far, and I can't wait to hear, what happens in another 3, 6, 9, 12 months.
Definitely, yeah. And I just got to thank you for, starting off my, journey in this flexibility,
Yeah, man, it's my pleasure. I love sharing this stuff and talking about this stuff.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
See ya, man.
See ya.
Yeah, be cool, just move with the groove.